Welcome! It's day 5 of our Nativity Stitch Along. Today we get to work on Joseph, which means we're doing the turkey work stitch, which I know is a hilarious name, or at least I think it is every time I hear it. So we're going to use 3033, we're going to use all 6 strands, and we're going to use a lot of it, clearly. Also, you'll see in your instructions, there's this fun little diagram here, and we're going to refer back to this so that we can understand how these stitches will overlay each other a little bit better as we go. To start, however, we need to get a section of floss. Now, if you got a kit, your floss came in the full skein, and this would be the first time that you've had to touch the full skein. So you have 2 choices. One, just take the things off and go for it. That's generally what I do. But if you want to keep things more orderly and just pull out a little bit at a time, if you set your skein so that the DMC logo is on top and your barcode logo is the bottom, right? This is right way up. The thread that comes out the bottom, that's the one you pull. And then you should just be able to pull it straight out. And if you pull, you can see that was like 3 loops or so. That's about 1 yard, which is about the size that I'm going to work with, so that I have to change my thread less. So pull from the bottom if you want to work from the skein. All right, I'm going to trim this up and we'll thread our needle and then talk about turkey work. Where's my needle? There we go. So turkey work can be done, at least in my world of embroidery, 2 ways. Or finished 2 ways, I guess I should say. They're stitched very, very similarly. Just you start a little bit different. So turkey work can either be trimmed when it's finished, or I like to leave it as the cute little loops and use it to have this fun loopy texture. But what else? The other option is you can trim all of these ends and have it just be like fuzzy cut ends, and either trim it short or keep it long and shaggy. So turkey work's a fun stitch to vary the size and shape and make fun things happen. So we're going to start with a knot on the end, and first row we're going to work left to right. Now, all things embroidery, if you wanted to work right to left first, that's fine. You just continue switching my right and your left. All right. So left to right, we're going to start over here on this edge. Now, you can see, oh, hold on. I'm going to bring you closer so you can see. Pause. It's hard to stitch with the camera super, super close, but it makes it a whole lot easier for you to see what's going on. So we'll stitch a little bit super close, and then I'm going to bring you back up. Oh, scoot over just a little bit. There you go. Close enough. All right. So you can see I'm not on the edge of my line. I'm over just a little bit. All right. So we're going to pull our thread all the way up. And then I'm going to go over. We're just going to a little ways. All right. And I'm going to go down. And now my loop height, what I make right here, how big this loop is, this is a loop that's going to stay on the top. I want it to sit right here on the bottom of Joseph. So I'm going to kind of hold it in place and test it and see, but that's how tall I want this loop to be. It's probably going to poke up at the beginning, and that's fine. As you get more stitches, it will lay down. So I want it to be that size. Now, we need to anchor this loop so it doesn't move. So I'm going to hold it with my thumb awkwardly in frame. And then I'm going to come up on the side of my loop, and then I pull, but I don't want to shorten this. Now the good news is if you did shorten it, it's really easy to pull it back out. And then I'm going to go down in the middle. So this anchors the right side of our loop, and now we need to anchor the left. And so I just came down in the center, so I can't go up in the center. I have to come over to the left side and pull up. And then we're again going to go down in the center. So we have made loop 1 at this point. Now, that bit was a little bit confusing. From here on out, it's much easier. Oh, camera just fell. I must have had it on my chair below me. Hold on. Reset. There we go. All right, so what we're gonna do now is you're gonna come up under this right hand. Sorry, I'm trying not to split all of my threads. I'm trying to come up next to it. There we go. Come up under the right anchor stitch and pull up. Then I'm gonna go down this same distance to right here. So it's kind of a half stitch away from this spot and a full stitch away from that spot. So we go down here, and again, I'm gonna make my loops the same size, checking to make sure. You don't have to be super exact, but you want it to be close. And then I'm gonna come up on the right, because remember, we like to come up in empty fabric, not next to this one. Quick check to make sure I didn't pull my loop, and down next to its friend. And then we just repeat this method all the way across. So let's talk through it one more time. We're gonna come up under our last anchor stitch, right? Then we go down a little bit down our line. Check to make sure our loop's a good size. Then we come up to the right of, oh, see, sometimes it pulls through. No big deal. We'll just grab our needle, slide it through, make it the right size, and then anchor, sorry. All right, so we continue this process all the way across. All right, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit here so I quit bumping the camera, and I'm gonna stitch to this other side and we'll meet up again. All right, we finished row 1 and have a better camera angle, and we're ready to go to row 2, our next guideline. So my thread is at the back right here. So we don't want to carry our thread on the back all the way over here and then stitch this way. So we're going to come up, and now we're going to work right to left. And again, we need to start with a loop like we did here. So from the back, I'm going to come up over here on this edge. Remember to leave a little bit of space because you have to anchor it, right? So you don't want to be touching the manger. You got to give it a little bit of space. And then we're going to go down over to the side. Again, on the same line. Now, length for this row is kind of going to be a little bit of personal preference and a rule of thumb. Hold on, there's a sad kiddo coming my way. And we're back. So, your loops need to be all the way covering the anchor stitch, but a little bit above the middle point of here. If you're all the way down here to the middle point, that's probably a little too long. So we're looking for somewhere in that top half covering this anchor stitch height, right? Don't stress too much about it. The important part is that you cover the anchor stitch so that when we're finished, all you see are the fun loops instead of seeing this one row of anchor stitches poking out. So again, we're gonna anchor. Now for this time, it's the left side first. And then we come up on the outside of this loop and we'll anchor it. And then we again start stitching, this time working towards the left. And you pull down here, and then we're again gonna match the length, right? And then our next stitch. It's a little bit far. There we go. Another way to match lengths, if you're struggling with that, is to loop your needle through both of them and then just hold them in place to anchor. All right, so we're going to continue all the way across this row and then back and forth up Joseph. You'll find that on this next row, it's easier to see where you're aiming for length, because you'll want row 3 right here to hit between rows 2 and 1, right here where my needle height is. So it'll be a little bit easier to see how long to make your stitches from row 3 on up. Now for the next few rows, it's just continuing this process. Go to the end, turn around, come back. All right, when we get a little bit farther up here, there's a little more to talk about. So I'm gonna do some stitching and we'll meet back up in a little bit. Yeah. Thanks to some fast magic, look, we're all the way up here. Now, you can see that my next stitch, if I were to make it, would cover this halo if I made it the same size as everything else on this line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make this next loop a little bit shorter, because this one's kind of covering the anchor, so I'm not too worried about that. Something in here like, so that as it moves around, it doesn't cover the halo. And we'll see if we can sneak one more stitch on here to get all the way to the side. And again, this stitch is going to be small because we don't want to cover the halo. Now, that might stick up a little funny. So one thing we can do is we can come up here a little bit below the line instead of right on the line as you anchor this stitch. And that will help direct the stitch to fall around instead of coming down straight. So you can see those shorter ones, oop, just got them with the needle, there you go, kind of meet right up against the halo. Maybe cover it just a little bit, but as they float up back again, you can see all of that beautiful work. All right, I'm going to stitch over here, and then we're going to talk about this space when we get over there. All right, let's pause our sped up version for a second. Now you can see this loop is trying to flip on itself and kind of create a figure 8 instead of a straight loop. This happens as there's too much twist in the floss from just being pulled through the fabric. So there's a couple things you can try and do. One, you can pull this loop all the way tight to the fabric and kind of straighten it out with your fingers a little bit and then pull it back down. And most of the time, that seems to help and fix it. If that doesn't, just let it be. You can see I have a few of them. Just let it be. And then as you come, after you've anchored it, and you go to the back side, let your floss hang, your needle hang from the fabric and just untwist itself a little bit. Maybe even run your fingers over it to help it untwist a little bit and be ready for the next stitch and ready to play along better. So you can see here, I've got this triangle space that I'm not going to be able to fill in with a stitch here. Got maybe 1 and a little bit stitches left. Now, unlike over there by the halo, we're going to treat this spot a little bit differently. Let me get this last stitch in here. We're just going to leave it blank for the time being. And then we're going to come back at the very end and we're going to add a special little stitch. Sorry, I'm caught on my hoop. There we go. That will fill in this little triangle space here. In fact, we could even make it now. Oh, so much hoop. There we go. There we go. That's where that lives. Back down under. Okay. If you read the instructions, it says to come back and do this. There's really no right or wrong answer for that. It's just easier to explain it that way. All right. So let's do this little part now to adjust the camera, because I realize that Instagram sometimes cuts off the top part and I wanted to make sure you could see it. So we're coming up in the middle of these 2 rows. And then we're going to come back down basically at the exact same spot. You don't have to hit the hole exactly, but we're going for right in the same spot. And now I'm going to make this loop as long as this top row of stitches right here, so all the loops match. And then I'm just going to come up next to these needle points here. And then I'm going to go down on the other side and just anchor that all together right there. So that when, this isn't hiding here, there we go. When all of them when they are all laying nice and flat, it completes the line across and you no longer have this weird empty triangle. So we're going to do that same thing for this triangle, this triangle, this triangle, and this triangle. And then we're also going to do this same stitch at the very top here. We'll have 1 little stitch at the top to fill in this very top triangle. So I'm going to do some more stitching and then I'll walk you through that top part. All right, so we've finished up all of our rows and now I'm going to make the last stitch up here kind of in the neck chin of Joseph. So just like we did on the side, gonna go up and down basically at the same spot. And then I'm gonna check and make sure that's as long as I want. I think I want it to be a little bit longer. Here we go, that feels good. And then I'm gonna hold this in place while I come up to the side, but not through the brown stitches. Check it one more time. And down on the other side to anchor that in place. Also, having stitched a few more rows, I think it's easier to come back and get these little triangle spots than it is to do them as you're going. That way you already have the line of stitches to match for length, and it just is a better mental transition. To stop doing this and then do a loop and then come back to normal turkey work is a lot to think about. So I'm going to finish up these last 3 little triangle stitches, and then I'll be done with my Joseph. And tomorrow we will learn Mary, and she are these fabulous thick woven wheels to finish off with. So again, remember to ask all of your questions and post progress pictures, and I will see you tomorrow. Happy stitching.